yellow open sign cast a warm glow across the laminated countertops of Robin's diner, fighting the gray, freezing morning outside. The breakfast rush had subsided, leaving behind comforting aromas of dark roast coffee and toasted rye bread. Jessie wiped down the stainless steel prep station with rhythmic motions, his breathing synchronized with the refrigerator's low hum. Across the narrow aisle, Kira was meticulously aligning the ceramic sugar caddies, ensuring every paper packet faced the exact same direction. Her hands suddenly stopped. She rotated her shoulders in a sharp motion, compiling new data. I have established a new operational parameter for our upcoming social interaction, Kira announced. Jessie's highly observant nature caught the faint tremor of anxiety threading through her syllables. When Sarah arrives, I promise to govern my vocal output. I will not speak robotically. Jessie paused his wiping. He folded the damp cloth into a neat square. Maintaining their established physical buffer, he turned to give her his absolute attention. You do not speak robotically, Kira. My internal self-assessment contradicts that hypothesis, she replied, her round hazel eyes fixed intensely on the artificial sweetener packets. I utilize clinical terminology and rigid phrasing. It makes perfect logical sense to me, as it eliminates ambiguity. However, normal freaks find it deeply unsettling. I want to present myself as a standard human variable so I do not scare off your sister-in-law. Before Jessie could formulate a compassionate response, a soft chuckle drifted from the register. Mrs. Henderson leaned against the front counter, her arms crossed comfortably over her apron. If I may interject into this highly calibrated discussion, Mrs. Henderson said, her eyes crinkling. I think both of you need a little reality check. Jessie, you do realize you have started speaking the exact same way she does, right? Jessie blinked, thrown off his center. He had literally just referred to Kira's speaking habits as an operational parameter in his head mere moments ago. He had effortlessly adopted her matrix. It is actually incredibly cute, Mrs. Henderson continued, waving a hand dismissively. You two have built your own little language over these past weeks. My advice, do not be afraid of it. Sarah is walking into your world now. You do not need to rewrite your entire vocabulary to make a guest comfortable in your own territory. Kira tilted her head, processing the manager's input. The rigid tension in her shoulders fractionally released, but a crease remained between her eyebrows. But what if the data transfer is simply too dense? When I experience nervous variables, I have a documented tendency to over-explain my thought processes until the listener actively disengages. If Sarah requires any interpretation during the interaction, I will gladly provide it, Jessie said, taking a calculated half-step forward to convey solidarity without violating her space. But I want you to be exactly who you are. Use the big words. Do not suppress your baseline. Even the over-explaining, Kira asked, her voice dropping to a vulnerable whisper. Especially the over-explaining, Jessie smiled, offering a genuine expression of deep affection. I cannot logically quantify exactly why, but that is honestly one of the things I like most about you. Kira looked up, locking onto his warm brown eyes. I do not fully understand it either, she admitted softly. It is just that I get trapped inside my own head, surrounded by an overwhelming volume of floating variables. I feel significantly better once I explain myself properly and get the data securely out into the shared environment. Then you will always have a shared environment with me, Jessie promised, his tone infused with unshakable humility. A profound wave of relaxation visibly washed over Kira. The terrifying unknown of the impending family introduction suddenly lost its threat. She did not have to mask her core operating system. She had Jessie. He had successfully become her anchor amidst the unpredictable chaos of social expectations. Mrs. Henderson tapped a heavy silver coin against the register, breaking the intense gravity pulling them together. All right, you two lovebirds. I see the connection, and I am officially deciding to protect it. But let us remember we still have to maintain professional protocols in the workplace. We have 20 minutes until the lunch rush." "Understood, Mrs. Henderson," Jessie and Kira chimed in near unison. They exchanged a secret smile before returning to their stations. The heavy dread Kira had harbored evaporated. She found herself genuinely anticipating Sarah's arrival. Less than 2 hours later, their shift concluded. They swapped diner aprons for heavy winter coats, stepping out of Robin's diner into the biting chill of the Manitoba afternoon. Jessie quickly started his sedan's engine to establish their required thermal baseline before Kira slipped into the passenger seat. They were heading south. Sarah was settling into her assignment in the city, so they had agreed to meet on the northern edge of Winnipeg. The drive began in the stark beauty of Gimli. The frozen expanse of Lake Winnipeg stretched out to their left, a massive sheet of white silence that demanded respect. Inside the cabin, the heater hummed a comforting drone, accompanied by the theatrical swell of steampunk music from the media console. Kira sat with her hands neatly folded in her lap, her green sweater safely cocooning her torso. As the kilometers vanished beneath them, the pristine isolation gave way. The horizon grew violently cluttered. The sky became scarred by the gray geometric lines of concrete overpasses, towering hydro grids, and industrial smoke. They were entering the chaotic, sprawling concrete labyrinth of Winnipeg. The ambient noise level outside the insulated glass noticeably spiked, vibrating through the floorboards. Massive transport trucks roared past, kicking up dirty slush. Neon signs from densely packed strip malls bled harsh colors into the overcast afternoon. It was an abrasive matrix of unpredictable variables and kinetic friction. Jessie tightened his grip on the steering wheel, his observant eyes tracking the hostile merging patterns of the city traffic. He glanced sideways at Kira, fully expecting her to withdraw into her rigid defensive protocols. Instead, she was looking out the passenger window, her expression entirely calm. She was not gripping the door handle or frantically calculating escape routes. "The environmental friction is increasing exponentially," Kira observed, her tone conversational rather than panicked. "It is," Jessie agreed. "We will be at the rendezvous coordinate in exactly 12 minutes. Are your internal variables still secure?" "They are perfectly secure," Kira replied, turning her head to look directly at him. The reflection of a passing taillight briefly illuminated the gentle, confident curve of her smile. "I have my rock." Jessie felt his heart perform a complicated, joyous rhythm. He merged onto the final concrete exit ramp, driving fearlessly into the sprawling city, fully prepared to introduce the girl he cared for to the rest of his world. The automatic doors slid shut, severing the freezing Manitoba wind and sealing Jessie and Kira inside a colossal monument to overstimulation. The resort complex was impossibly vast, easily the size of a professional football stadium, sprawling outward in a labyrinth of intersecting corridors, vaulted glass ceilings, and dense, multi-level entertainment zones. To their immediate left, the main lobby bled seamlessly into the gaping maw of a massive casino. Beyond that, neon signs pointed toward countless restaurants, theaters, and the humid, echoing cavern of an indoor water park. Jessie paused just past the entry mats, his highly observant nature instantly cataloging the aggressive sensory matrix. The casino entrance vomited a cacophony of electronic chimes, cascading coin sound effects, and the low, collective hum of hundreds of overlapping conversations. Flashing LED displays threw erratic, colorful shadows across the polished marble floor. It was a hostile environment of unpredictable variables. He looked down at Kira, his protective instincts flaring. She stood beside him in her oversized green sweater, her eyes tracking the chaotic movement with mechanical precision. "The auditory friction in here is extreme," Jessie said, keeping his voice steady and low, leaning in just enough so she could hear him over the din. Are you going to be all right with this noise level? We can immediately reroute if the data transfer is too heavy. Kira did not shrink away from the flashing lights or cover her ears. She kept her hands neatly tucked in her pockets. I am securely within my operational parameters. It will not last forever, Jessie. We only have to transit through the high-volume zones. There will be a quiet place inside. Jessie studied her face, searching for any micro-expressions of mounting panic. He found none. There was only a calculated, determined resilience. How do you know that? He asked, genuine curiosity softening his concern. I have historical data regarding this specific type of architectural layout, Kira explained, her gaze fixed on the endless rows of slot machines just beyond the velvet ropes. I was obligated to attend my step-cousin's wedding 3 years ago. The reception was held in a hybrid hotel, casino, and conference center very similar to this one. The social expectations were densely populated with unknown relatives. She paused, her brow furrowing slightly as she retrieved the exact memory file. During the cocktail hour, I attempted to consume Italian coffee for the first time. The uncalibrated caffeine intake caused a severe physiological spike. I became intensely paranoid. The sheer volume of neurotypical social rituals occurring in the banquet room felt like an immediate threat. So what did you do? Jessie asked, giving her the unbroken space to process her narrative. I calculated the odds of survival, Kira said matter-of-factly. I decided that the chaotic floor of the casino was statistically safer than a closed room full of people I did not know who might try to hug me or ask about my future. The machines only wanted money. They did not require eye contact or small talk. I sat next to a deactivated automated roulette table for 3 hours. Kira fell silent, the residual echo of the bustling lobby filling the space between them. She blinked rapidly, her shoulders stiffening as a wave of self-doubt suddenly crashed over her rigid posture. That did not make any sense, she murmured, looking down at the marble tiles. Escaping sensory overload by hiding in a casino is a completely illogical contradiction. I am incorrectly processing the variables. It made perfect sense, Jessie countered instantly, his voice a warm, unwavering anchor. He did not offer empty platitudes. He engaged directly with her logic. People are unpredictable. A room full of strangers with social expectations is a massive unknown. But a casino is entirely built on math. It is just algorithms and flashing lights operating on a fixed loop. You found the one place governed by strict rules. Kira looked back up, the tension immediately draining from her jaw. Her round hazel eyes locked onto his, reflecting a profound, quiet gratitude. He understood her native language without requiring a dictionary. "Thank you," she said softly. "Always," Jessie replied, offering a gentle smile. "Now let us navigate the math." He gestured forward, taking the lead but maintaining a careful pace that allowed Kira to regulate her spatial awareness. They walked past the sprawling casino floor, the frantic electronic chimes fading as they navigated deeper into the belly of the complex. The temperature shifted noticeably as they approached a wide, glass-lined hallway. The air here was thick and heavy with humidity, carrying the sharp, clean scent of chlorinated water. Beyond the massive glass partitions lay the indoor water park. Towering fiberglass slides twisted like brightly colored veins around a central wave pool. The walkway itself was dotted with glowing drink machines and small, open-air bars catering to guests, shuffling past in sandals and resort wear. The acoustic environment was a low, constant roar of rushing water, which functioned as a much more predictable white noise compared to the casino. "We are approaching the culinary sector," Kira noted, her eyes darting toward the illuminated signage of a high-end steakhouse and a massive Italian eatery located just past the water park viewing area. "Right on schedule," Jessie confirmed. Before they could take another step toward the restaurant promenade, 2 figures stepped out from the alcove near a brightly lit soda vending machine. Jessie immediately recognized his brother's broad shoulders and easy stance. Caleb was smiling, holding a plastic cup of ice water, while Sarah stood beside him, unwinding a thick wool scarf from her neck. The variables had arrived. Jessie felt a brief, involuntary tightening in his chest. Introducing his past to his present was a bridge he had been meticulously preparing for, but the reality of the intersection still carried a heavy gravitational pull. He looked at Kira, ready to step slightly in front of her to act as a buffer. He never got the chance. Kira took a sharp, calculated breath. She closed the physical distance between them, reaching out and sliding her hand firmly around Jessie's arm. Her grip was strong, using his solid presence as her central grounding point. Then, she stepped forward, pulling him alongside her. She squared her shoulders, looking directly at the approaching couple. With her free hand, she extended a perfectly rigid, mathematically precise handshake toward Sarah, and then shifted it slightly to encompass Caleb. "Hello," Kira said, her voice clear and carrying no robotic hesitation, only the brave, deliberate cadence of someone mastering her own universe. "I am Kira. I have been informed that we are going to consume a meal together. It is very efficient to meet you." Jessie looked down at the girl holding onto his arm, his heart expanding with absolute, overwhelming respect. The noise of the water park and the overwhelming resort faded into total insignificance. She was navigating the chaos, and she was doing it brilliantly. The ambient humidity of the water park corridor finally gave way to the aggressively air-conditioned atmosphere of the resort's premier buffet. The transition was sharp, accompanied by the clattering percussion of ceramic plates and the overlapping chatter of tourists. Jessie moved with deliberate intention, guiding their small group past the reception podium and requesting a booth in the back corner. He instinctively positioned himself between the main dining floor and Kira, transforming his body into a physical firewall against the unpredictable kinetic energy. The immediate operational requirement was acquiring nourishment. Kira navigated the vast culinary matrix with extreme prejudice. The buffet was an overwhelming architectural marvel of illuminated heating lamps, stainless steel tongs, and intersecting guest trajectories. Endless rows of glazed meats and towering dessert displays threatened to overload her standard sensory limits. However, she maintained strict portion control, wielding her tongs with mathematical precision. She selected exactly 3 pieces of sweet egg sushi, a small scoop of steamed white rice, and a measured ladle of clear broth. Her internal database held a heavily encrypted file regarding holiday buffets. During her teenage years, her family established a routine of visiting the Canada Inn's buffet around Christmas time. The variable of unregulated consumption always resulted in a catastrophic physiological failure. Overeating meant puking. The overwhelming sensory collision inevitably triggered severe autonomic rejection. She did not need to input that gross biological data into the current social environment. The others did not require the mechanics of her digestive boundaries. Perhaps later, in the absolute safety of Jessie's apartment, she would explain the volumetric mathematics of her stomach to him. He was her safe variable. He would not judge the clinical reality of her nausea. But for now, her plate remained perfectly, safely minimal. Jessie returned to the booth holding a plate of simply roasted vegetables and plain chicken, his selections mirroring the neat, unmixed separation on Kira's dish. Sarah and Caleb arrived moments later. Their plates were chaotic landscapes, piled high with an unpredictable assortment of sauces bleeding into starches. They sat across the laminated table, their presence introducing a dense new gravity into the space. The clatter of heavy silverware provided a steady rhythm that effectively masked the distant, echoing roar of the resort. Jessie took a slow, methodical sip of his ice water, his warm brown eyes fixing firmly on his brother. He needed to resolve an outstanding anomaly in his operational matrix. He had to understand the exact trajectory of the hostile threat. "I have a logistical question, Caleb," Jessie said, keeping his tone perfectly level, devoid of immediate accusation but demanding structural clarity. "How exactly did you know Kira existed? I moved north to establish a secure perimeter. I did not transmit any data regarding my current social status to the family network." Caleb paused, a forkful of pasta hovering halfway to his mouth. He glanced sideways at Sarah, who suddenly found her paper napkin immensely interesting, smoothing its edges with unwarranted concentration. "Well," Caleb began, shifting his broad shoulders against the vinyl backing of the booth. "It was not a direct transmission, Jess. You sold the house in Winnipeg completely out of nowhere. No forwarding address, no explanation. You just vanished." Caleb set his fork down, his expression tightening. "Darcy came to me shortly after. She was projecting massive concern. She claimed you were making erratic choices and that she was genuinely worried about your mental health. I bought the narrative. I told her the general geographic region you headed toward." He rubbed the back of his neck. "Then, a little while later, Darcy came back. She was furious. She announced that she had driven up to Gimli to check on you, and she found out you had already found someone." Caleb's voice trailed off, leaving the sentence hanging over the table like a frayed wire. He clearly did not want to fully insert Darcy's hostile vocabulary into the current environment. He swallowed hard, unwilling to repeat the derogatory framing Darcy had likely used. Kira stopped chewing her sweet egg sushi. A distinct shift occurred in the ambient atmosphere. The table was suddenly radiating a dense, negative frequency. The data Caleb provided confirmed that Darcy was actively using Jessie's biological network as an espionage tool. More importantly, Caleb's hesitation indicated an incomplete data transfer. The negative energy was a heavy, invisible fog. Kira placed her chopsticks perfectly parallel across her ceramic soy sauce dish. She looked directly at Jessie's brother, calculating his utility and his potential threat level. "Caleb," Kira said, her voice cutting clearly through the buffet's background hum. She utilized her precise, clinical phrasing. "Have you interacted with an autistic human in your professional or personal capacity before?" Caleb blinked, clearly derailed. He straightened his posture, adopting a slightly more formal academic cadence. "Actually, yes, I am a psychiatrist. I spend a significant amount of my time studying the brain, behavioral patterns, and neurological development." Kira processed this occupational data. "And what is your professional assessment regarding autistic variables?" "Well," Caleb said, offering a practiced, diplomatic smile, "I find them fascinating. The neurodivergent brain is very interesting. Some individuals are especially smart when it comes to a specific topic or a hyper-focused obsession." Kira felt her facial muscles tighten. The word obsession carried a heavy, pathologizing weight. It was a normal freak classification. She glanced at Jessie, who was watching her with unwavering respect and compassion. He was not going to interrupt unless she requested it. Historically, normal society deemed those neurological structures unacceptable, Kira stated, locking onto Caleb with intense focus. People with disabilities, including autism, were frequently institutionalized. They were locked in concrete buildings to protect the median population from unpredictable variables. If that systemic protocol were reintroduced today, would you support it, or would you fight against it? The clatter of silverware seemed to mute. Sarah's eyes widened. Jessie leaned forward fractionally, captivated by Kira's fierce, analytical defense mechanism. He felt a profound surge of humility. She was aggressively defining the parameters of her own humanity. Caleb's diplomatic smile vanished instantly, replaced by profound surprise. He looked at Kira, understanding that he was not speaking to a fragile novelty or a textbook case study, but to a highly intelligent woman demanding absolute moral clarity. That is a dark part of history, Caleb answered quietly, his tone stripped of its previous academic superiority. I would fight it, Kira, absolutely and without hesitation. Kira held his gaze for 3 full seconds, running his responses through her internal threat detection algorithms. The negative energy marginally dissipated, restoring equilibrium to their shared environment. I accept that data, she replied softly, picking her chopsticks back up. She took a measured bite of her steamed rice, the rigid, logical geometry of her universe stabilizing once more.